All right, so we are getting started here with story time with you, Marcy. Hi, everyone. And we're so thankful to be here with you all today as a part of Burst into Books. And I will be your reader for today, and Amara is our guest. Right? You ready to get started? Yes. Okay, so one of the books, we have two books we're going to read today. The first one is called You Can Do It. You can do it. Sometimes we get down on ourselves. It gets challenging, it gets hard. And it's a good reminder to know that we can do it. Right, Amara? Okay, so let's get right into it. You Can Do It by Tony Dungy. Tony's little brother, Lyndon, was having a bad day at school. To begin with, his tooth hurt a lot. And then in the middle of class, Lyndon touched his sore cheek and he accidentally made a big, loud noise that sounded like a duck quacking. Can you quack like a duck? Quack, quack. Everyone started laughing at him, except his teacher, Miss Lee, who said his parents could expect a call tonight. All this made it hard for Lyndon to concentrate on the lesson. Miss Lee went around the room asking everyone what they dreamed of being someday. So that's the picture there of Lyndon. When it was Lyndon's turn, he realized he was the only one who had no idea. I don't know, he answered. Maybe a duck. Everyone started laughing again. Lyndon liked it when he made people smile, but Miss Lee was not smiling. He couldn't wait until the bell rang so he could walk home with his big brother, Tony. That's Tony. Tony tried to cheer up Lyndon on the way home. Hey, Lyndon, why don't you go out for a long class just like I taught you? Tony called out as he pulled the football from under his arm. The ball spiraled through the air in a perfect arch and landed in Lyndon's arms with a soft thud. Lyndon waved the ball proudly. Maybe someday I'll be as good in sports as you are, he said to Tony, as they continued to walk home. Lyndon knew his brother hoped to become a football player when he grew up. Tony could already throw a football so far and high. You might as well pack a snack to eat while waiting for it to come back down. Tony playfully punched Lyndon's arm. That's cool, little brother. But remember what mom and dad always tell us. I know, Lyndon said. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it. Trust God and dream big. But Lyndon wondered if playing football was really what he wanted to do. And it says, I'll do this so you all can see what's going on here. Is that better? Kind of. Okay, you can see the picture of the parents. Here we go. That was Miss Lee again. Somebody called on the phone. Lyndon's dad said as he hung up the phone, what did he do this time? Linda's mom asked, was he quacking like a duck during math again? Quack, quack. Actually, no, Dad replied. This time it was in English class. Oh, no, Mom sighed, then added, but you have to admit, he does a great quack call. Quack! That he does, agreed Dad. As they watched the boys race to the house behind their sisters, Sherry and Lauren, but he should not be doing it in the middle of class. They're outside playing. Mom, Dad, Guess what we did? Asked Sherry. We saved a baby bird and put it back in its nest, said Lauren eagerly. You'll both make great doctors or nurses someday, exclaimed Mom with pride. Maybe I'll be a doctor or a nurse someday, thought Lyndon. Just then his tooth gave him a sharp pain, and he remembered what had happened at school. Lyndon, Miss Lee called today. Dad took a closer look at Lyndon. Why are you rubbing your jaw? I wasn't quacking this time, Dad. My tooth was hurting, and when I rubbed it, Lyndon pushed the side of his mouth, and out came a loud quack. Next thing I know, everybody was laughing. Lyndon turned to his mother and said, Mom, my tooth really hurts. Mom took a closer look at Lyndon's sore tooth. This tooth explains today. But does that explain the other two calls we've gotten from your teacher? No, said Lyndon. I just like to make people smile. But he put his hands in his pockets and tried hard not to cry. Besides, your tooth, what's wrong, son? Asked Dad. They're all looking at Lyndon to figure out what's going on. It's just that Tony and Sherry and Lauren know their it. I don't know my it. Their it? Asked his dad. Their it. What they dream about, what they want to be. It's like you always tell me. You can do it. Dream big. But I don't know what it is. Don't you worry about that, son. I promise you, you'll find your dream in your own time. For now, let's put something on that tooth to make you feel better, and we'll get you fixed up in the morning. But Dad could see that Lyndon was still feeling down. How can I make this better, he thought. How can I help Lyndon find his dream? Missing sad. He's a little sad. It says, it was Tony's turn to say the dinner prayer, and that night's was extra special. See the picture. Dear Lord, thank you for blessing us the way you do. Thank you for the food, and thank you for our dreams. And God, Tony said with his head bowed and his eyes closed extra tight, please help Lyndon find his it. Amen. That's nice that he prayed for his brother, right? Yeah. Says, what are you thinking about? Tony asked, tossing a pillow across the room before bedtime. Is your tooth still hurting you? A little, answered Lyndon. But I was thinking about your prayer tonight, Tony. I trust God. I pray every day too. But I still don't know what is my big dream. I'm not sure, Lyndon, but God knows. And one day you will too, said Tony. But I do know one thing you will be when you grow up. Really? You do? Lyndon said anxiously. Yeah. No matter what you do or how big you get, you'll still be my baby brother, Tony teased. And as my baby brother, you have to go to bed before me. Good night, Lyndon. Early the next morning, Dad and Lyndon were on their way to the dentist, but they had to make a stop at Dad's science lab first. There's something I want to show you, said Dad. Why don't you come look in the microscope? Lyndon peered into the lens and saw squirming squiggles and bubbling blobs. Awesome, said Lyndon with amazement. That's my it under there, said Dad with a smile. Huh? Asked Lyndon. Your it is what you love to do. And it's something God has given you the talent to do. That's what makes it so special. Son, sometimes dreams are as big as the ocean or as small as a microbe. With faith and hard work, you'll recognize your it someday. I didn't realize science was my it when I was your age.
His it.
Yeah.
His it.
Says, really? So I still have time to figure it out? Asked Lyndon, feeling relieved. Plenty of time, answered Dad. Just keep having faith. One cavity filled and good as new, said Dr. Clark. Said, that's it, said Lyndon with amazement and relief. That didn't hurt at all. He ran his tongue over the smooth surface, now filling the top of the tooth that had been causing him so much pain. Something like that. He rubbed his tongue at the top of his teeth, right? Yeah, he did. And then it says, he gave Dr. Clark a big smile. You do a big smile? Yeah, you went to the dentist today too, didn't you? Yeah. And it says, that's what I like to see, said Dr. Clark. I love to make people smile. Me too, said Lyndon. You're good to go. Lyndon, unless you have some questions for me. Lyndon had lots of questions. How did you squish that stuff into my tooth? And what's that tube thing? And what's that machine? One question at a time, laughed Dr. Clark, picking up a giant set of plastic teeth. How about we start with these? Next page. It says a few weeks later, it was show and tell. You got it? Day at school. Lyndon stood in front of the class and explained some of the amazing things he learned from Dr. Clark. Yeah. When you make people feel good, they smile. And that's why when I grow up, Lyndon said, I want to be a dentist. He winked at Tony, who was watching from the doorway. Good for you, Lyndon, said Miss Lee. I think you can do it. I know you can do it, little brother, said his very proud big brother, Tony. And he did. Ouch.
That's my bones.
That's your bones.
Ouch.
Says, I'm glad I had parents that helped us to dream. I'm glad they taught us to pray about things that were on our mind. And I'm really glad that God answers our prayers. Sometimes he answers them in unexpected ways and at unexpected times. But he's always listening to us. Our parents taught us to dream, but they also taught us something more important. Whatever we dreamed about, we should tell God because he is the one that can make those plans succeed. Oh, and you're probably wondering, did my brother really become a dentist? He really did. We knew he would have faith to find his dream. And you can do it too. And that's him all grown up, right? Yeah. So I hope y'all like that story. We liked it a lot. And so that's You Can Do It by Tony Dungy. You like that story? It looks like we have some visitors. We have 2 more visitors today.
Hi.
Liana and Oya for story time. Yeah, come on. So this is another story we're going to read. And it's called Henry's Freedom Box. We got this a while back in Baltimore. A friend, a farmer, gave us this book to read when my oldest was younger. So I hope that you all love this story as much as we do. All right, girls, you ready? Okay, I'm gonna sit up. Okay. It's called Henry's Freedom Box.
I can't see.
So you can go on that side so you can see. Okay?
See.
All right.
You just gotta scoot closer to a mom.
Okay, here we go. And Lee, can you go get the charger really quick? Okay, here we go.
Mom.
Henry's Freedom Box by Ellen Levine and illustrated by Kadir Nelson.
Kadir. Oh, look, Kadir.
Here we go.
Everything.
Henry Brown wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their birthdays.
Oh, that's sad.
Henry and his brothers and sisters worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family, but Henry's mother knew things could change. Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They are torn from the trees like slave children are torn from their families.
From their family.
Yeah. One morning, the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed the wide staircase. The master lay in bed, and with only his head above the quilt, he was very ill. He beckoned them to come closer. Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat fast. Maybe the master would set him free. But the master said, "You are a good worker, Henry. I am giving you to my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie." Henry nodded, but he didn't say thank you. That would have been a lie.
The end. Not the end.
Not the end yet. Later that day, Henry watched a bird soar high above the trees. Free bird, happy bird, Henry thought. Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves swirled in the wind. Henry worked in his new master's factory. He was good at his job. "Do not tear that tobacco leaf," the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked the boy with a stick. That's not good, right? No. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you. Henry was lonely. One day he met Nancy, who was shopping for her mistress. They walked and talked and agreed to meet again. Henry felt like singing, but slaves didn't dare sing in the streets. Instead, he hummed all the way home. You know how to hum? Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When both their masters agreed, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon there was a little baby, then another, and another. Henry knew they were very lucky. They lived together even though they had different masters. But Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. "I'm afraid he will sell our children," she said. Henry sat very still. Henry worked hard all morning. He tried to forget what Nancy said. You can see he's really thinking about something.
Mommy, can you
Story time. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No!" cried Henry. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco," the boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. A large group of slaves was tied together. The owner shouted at them. Henry looked for his family. "Father! Father!" Henry watched his children disappear down the road. Where was Nancy? He saw her the same moment she saw him. When he wiped away his tears, Nancy too was gone. Henry no longer sang. He couldn't hum. He went to work, and at night he ate supper and went to bed. Henry tried to think of happy times, but all he could see were the carts carrying away everyone he loved. Henry knew he would never see his family again. It's okay. Go ahead. Many weeks passed. One morning, Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of the tree into the charger.
You said the little bird
Into
the charger.
Into the charger. Sorry, we're pausing for a second. My laptop might die. Lee, please go get the charger. Okay. Jamira, I apologize. I know it's story time. I mean, my laptop might die. So I may read as much as I can as we go through. Okay? Okay, follow with me. It says, but how, as he lifted a crate, he knew the answer. He asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a white man and who thought slavery was wrong. They met early the next day at an empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. I will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves, he said. James stared at the box, then at Henry. What if you cough and someone hears you? I will cover my mouth and hope, Henry said. Dr. Smith, thank you. Dr. Smith wrote on the box, to William H. Johnson, Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Henry will be delivered to friends in Philadelphia. Then he printed on the crate in big letters, this side up with care. Yes. So keep going. Let's go back, Amara, so they can see. Henry needed an excuse to stay home, or the work boss would think he had run off. James pointed to Henry's sore finger, but Henry knew it wasn't bad enough. He opened a bottle of oil of vitriol. No, cried James. Henry poured it on his hand. It burned his skin to the bone. Can you imagine that?
I can't see.
Let me see. Now the boss would have to let him stay home. Dr. Smith bandaged Henry's hand. They arranged to meet the next morning at 4 o'clock. The sun was not yet up when Henry climbed into the box. Ready, he said. James nailed down the lid. Dr. Smith and James drove to the station. The railway clerk tipped the box over and nailed the paper to the bottom. Dr. Smith begged the clerks to be careful, but they didn't listen. They threw the box into the baggage car. So you can see. Hours passed. Henry was lifted up and thrown again, upside down. He heard waves splashing. This must be the steamboat headed for Washington, D.C. The ship rode smoothly, but Henry was still upside down. Blood rushed to his head. His face got hot. His eyes ached. He thought his head would burst. But he was afraid to move. Someone might hear him. Can you imagine being a box upside down? Let's see how he managed to do it. I'm tired of standing, someone said. Right here. Why don't we move that box and sit on it? Said another. Henry held his breath. He held his breath because they were so close, right? He didn't want them to hear him. It says, could they be talking about his box? Were they talking about his box? They were. Henry was pushed. The box scraped the deck. Now he was on his right side, now on his left. And suddenly, right side up. "What do you think is in here?" said the first man. "Mail, I guess," said the other. "I am mail?" thought Henry.
You are.
But not the kind of mail they imagined. Henry was carried off the steamboat and placed in a railroad car, this time head up. He fell asleep to the rattling song of the train wheels. What kind of sound does a rattling sound make? Good job, girls. It says, he awoke to loud knocking. "Henry, are you all right in there?" "All right," he answered. The cover was pried open. Henry stretched and stood up. 4 men smiled at him. "Welcome to Philadelphia." At last, Henry had a birthday, March 30th, 1849, his first day of freedom. And from that day on, he also had a middle name. Everyone called him Henry Box Brown. And a note from our author. In the mid-1800s, there were about 4 million slaves living in the United States. Slaves were owned like tables or cows or wagons. Historians believe between 60,000 and 100,000 slaves escaped to freedom, traveling on what was called the Underground Railroad. Who do we know helped us during the Underground Railroad?
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman. It says the Underground Railroad wasn't a real railroad. It was all the secret ways slaves made their way from the south to the north. They hid in carts, rode on horseback, walked hundreds of miles through forests and swamps, and crossed flowing rivers in summer and icebound rivers in winter. Conductors and station masters hid them and helped them throughout their journey. When Henry Brown climbed into his freedom box, he hoped he was carried to a safe world. He brought along a small tool to make air holes, a little water, and a few biscuits. Henry arrived in Philadelphia, having traveled 350 miles from Richmond, Virginia, in 27 hours. His story made newspaper headlines in America and Europe. Henry never found Nancy and his children. In 1850, he went to England, and there are some reports that he married again. We do know with absolute certainty that Henry Box Brown became one of the most famous runaway slaves on the Underground Railroad, the man who mailed himself to freedom.
And the lady who...
And that was Henry's Freedom Box, again, by Ellen Levine. And so just a great story in sharing the persistence and the pure like grit and focus and just keep pushing through even when things were most challenging in order to be free, in order to enjoy that time. And so no more stories right now. Thank you all for sharing story time with us. With the family here. We love reading and we hope that you do too. And with that, the 2 books that I shared with you today were You Can Do It, Liana. Thank you. Were You Can Do It by Tony Dungy and Henry's Freedom Box by Ellen Levine. So I hope that you can enjoy these 2 stories and we look forward to coming back soon, reading other stories as well. Thank you all so much for sharing this time with us. I hope that it's... Arjuna, are you saying it's okay to read another story? Sorry. Or... Okay. She said it's okay if we read another story. What's this? Pick one more. We do one more?
Okay.
I said one more. What do you see over there? Okay, we might have one more story.
We're gonna one more.
Did you find one, Lee? She's going in the bookcase closet. Oh, now that's nice. Yes. Okay. Are we ready?
Mhm.
Thanks. Okay, so we have one more story that Leah's picked out. Nikita. And this one
seen
is called
Nikita.
Queen of Sheba by Abrafi S. Sanika. All right.
Queen of Sheba.
And we're going to read the inside of this really briefly. It says, peanut butter brown and proudly wearing a thick mane of dreadlocks, a young African-American girl named Nikita has always known she was named for the legendary Queen of Sheba, who is described in the Holy Bible as black and comely. Girls, pay attention. Everybody's watching you. Okay? It says, here and comely. Black as the tints of Keter. Follow the adventures of Nikita as her dreadlocks become antenna to the ancestors and bring her vision dreams of her African ancestors. The Queen of Sheba, Pharaoh Hatshepsut, Toussaint Louverture, and others, beautifully illustrated in bold, bright colors. This story will delight and inform both young and old. Okay, girls, so we're getting ready to read the story, right? And we want to make sure everyone else can hear the story too, right? So what does that mean we have to do? Listen closely and watch and be quiet, right? Can we do that? Perfect. Everybody's ready for story time? The last story.
Hey, Mommy.
Nikita, Queen of Sheba, a children's story of an ancient African ancestor.
Oh, so cute.
For Nikita, may the one God, who is eternally besought of all, bless you and show you the straight path. And to my angel, Deidre Louise, with peace, blessings, and all my love. So it's from the author and from the illustrator too.
Who gave this to us?
We got it when we went to LA. Okay. Black and comely. I look upon your countenance, and I see Solomon's wisdom. And falling in love with you, you are indeed black and comely. O daughter of the Nile, the blessings of the equatorial sun shine brightly upon you. Caress your skin and reflect in your eyes the wisdom of the ages. Daughter of Isis, of Hatshepsut, of queens unknown, unsung, mother of ages yet unfurled, you are indeed black and comely. Eyes that reflect the sun by day, the moon and the stars by night, reflect the glory of your mothers' mothers, the embodiment of a history so very, very old. Could it be that the dignity reflected in your eyes, can I see your eyes? Eyes, yes, your eyes reflects an existence since before time began. Oh, African queen, your beauty is the beauty of love, of your creator, of life, of laughter. You carry within a dignity, born of the stars, a constancy, a gift from heaven. Know you, oh precious of the Nile, that Ethiopia stretches out her arms to embrace you, to nurture and to guide you. For the Nile and many cataracts you will visit on your life's journey. The ancestors smile upon you and bring you peace, for they hold you in the cradle of their eternal love. Love, little princesses, and grow wise in the straight path the Creator wants ease for you. All else is the desire of the evil whisperer, whose only power is that which you grant to him. Shun evil, little princesses, and little prince. Embrace love and laughter. The songs of Solomon, the gifts of the ancestors are with you. Nikita, whose mommy liked to call her Queen of Sheba, was a peanut butter brown sweetheart. Everyone could see that she was possessed of a loving nature. She was kind and thoughtful toward everyone, and she had a smile as warm as sunshine. Her wonderfully free spirit was a joy to behold, and her laughter bubbled forth like a mountain stream on an early spring morning. She had deep, dark mahogany eyes and a head full of thick brown dreadlocks. that cascaded over her shoulders like a lion's mane. Like yours. You see me picking your nose. She had deep, dark mahogany eyes.
Ooh.
I've read that again. Yeah, they saw you. They saw you. So you can't hide.
Okay.
It says, she wore her dreads with pride, for she knew that they were a
Does it look
unique
good in my
gift.
nose?
Focus so they can hear, right?
Yeah.
She wore her dreads with pride, for she knew that they were a unique gift to African people. Nikita liked to snuggle against her mommy as they watched TV in bed. At the end of the day,
What in the world?
sometimes they even ate crackers or candy in bed, just because they wanted to. After saying their evening prayers, Nikita liked to hear a bedtime story before dozing off. See the picture? Okay.
No.
Nikita loved to hear the stories of the Queen of Sheba and of all of her African ancestors and of the straight path that they had set as an example for her to follow. It was a path made of something better than gold, for it was built with intelligence, kindness, creativity, and hard work. A manifest of love of God's will. One of her favorite stories was about the great pyramids of ancient Kemet in the land now known as Egypt, and pyramids of ancient Kemet in the land now known as Egypt. Just one more time. And about the mysterious Sphinx, keeper of the world's oldest riddle. Sometimes mommy would pretend to be the Sphinx, and she would demand to know what goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening. Do you know?
No.
Man, shot back Nikita with a big grin. Why? Demanded the Sphinx mommy, looking very serious and mysterious. Because in the morning of a man's life, when he is a baby, he crawls on all 4s. In the afternoon of his life, when he is full grown, he walks on 2 feet. And in the evening of life, when he is an old man, he uses a cane to help him. You're a very wise little girl. Are you all very wise little girls? Oh, you are.
Lily 6.
Said her mommy, kissing her gently on the forehead. Mwah. That wasn't gently, was it? Perhaps one day, soon we can travel to the land of the Sphinx. Nikita had heard the riddle of the Sphinx many, many times. It was her favorite riddle, and she loved to say it over and over. She often fell asleep, dreaming of what it would be like to live in the time of the Sphinx in ancient Africa and to meet the great rulers who gave civilization to the world. So you see the picture? So it's a picture of Africa. You see the Sahara. You see Egypt, which was originally known as Kemet, the land of the black. Timbuktu over there. Some other really cool places here. Ethiopian Sea, Indian Ocean, all of these great places. Thank you. And now, Nikita knew that she was named in honor of a famous queen who ruled over ancient Ethiopia thousands of years ago. She had often heard the stories of Nikita, Queen of Sheba, of her legendary beauty, black and comely, of her wealth beyond measure, of her great love for her people, and of King Solomon, who fell madly in love with her. One evening, as Nikita hugged her pillow, and began drifting off into the twilight of dreams, she felt a strange and wonderful sensation. One of her dreads began to move ever so slightly, swaying gently upward until it seemed to stand alone like an antenna, swaying back and forth gently. It somehow hypnotized Nikita in a delicious way. She felt no fear, just enchantment. and a sense of peace and love embracing her. As she drifted further into a dream state, she heard a gentle voice. Greetings, my beloved little namesake. I am Nikita, Queen of Sheba. I come to you this evening from millennia past.
Dada.
You have attracted my attention because of your love of African people and your desire to learn of your history. I come to you now to tell you the story of my life. I was born nearly 1,000 years before the birth of Christ, and my royal Ethiopian family appointed me to rule over the land of Sheba. I was renowned for my wealth and beauty and was known in antiquity as black and comely. But more, I was famous for my love of knowledge and for my love of my people. Tamrin, my chief merchant, had brought me stories and gifts from a great King Solomon, whose kingdom had visited on his many travels. Tamrin told me that Solomon's fairway kingdom rivaled mine in beauty and riches, and that his countrymen loved him dearly. Solomon was rumored to have great wisdom and a gift of language, whereby the birds and even the wind submitted to his command. He was famous and powerful, and I became quite curious about him. In his kingdom, I summoned my counselors, and we traveled to Jerusalem and the land of Solomon. See the picture. He was indeed powerful and rich and wise, and the wind and birds did indeed do his bidding. Upon entering his crystal palace, I saw a magnificent throne worked in gold and precious jewels that stretched to the very ceiling. 6 golden steps ascended to the throne, and an arch of ivory encircled King Solomon's head. He sat majestically in his place of honor as regally manned lions roared. Can you roar?
Roar.
Roar! It said, the lions roared, their approval bowing only to his command. When he stood, he sat majestically in his place of honor, as regally man lions roared. When he stood, he was tall and imposing in his robes of fine linen and embroidery. With deep dark eyes and a mirthful gleam, his stately manner was truly that of a king, well loved by his people. Well loved by his people. I may have fallen in love with him the very moment that I met him. I cannot say for sure. I just know that I wanted to know more about this wonderfully handsome and intelligent man. I sojourned in his kingdom and enjoyed the exciting sights and sounds of a great land. King Solomon spoke to me of many wise teachings, and I questioned him closely so that my thirst for learning and wisdom would be quenched. All of my questions he answered, and with joy I submitted to the glory of the one God. Great listening, girls. It says, after some time, though I was enchanted by the king, my duty to my people demanded that I leave the land of Solomon and journey home. Solomon, see a picture? Now we have to look at the screen. It says,
want to see the picture.
I so much want you to stay, said King Solomon. But if you must leave, do so only after the feast I have prepared for you.
See the face now?
Thank you. It is agreed, I replied. There is only one request that I make of you, said King Solomon. Oh, yeah, I have to do my King Solomon voice. And what is that? That you will take nothing of value from me before returning to your land. That if you take anything of value without my permission, you will agree to remain in my kingdom with me. At this remark, I bristled in dismay. I am Nikita, Queen of Sheba. I have wealth beyond measure and have no need to steal. For what earthly reason would I take anything of value from you? You think she was a little upset? Maybe a little bit. It says, Solomon, whose wisdom was as legendary as my beauty, smiled and said, we shall see. Days of preparation brought treasures of every kind from the most faraway lands. Magnificent silk carpets from Persia, woven in royal purple and gold, adorned the floor of Solomon's crystal palace. Elegant lavender lilies and lotus blossoms from the banks of the Nile River rested delicately, and blossoms from the banks of the Nile River rested delicately in translucent alabaster vases. Stately peacocks displayed their emerald and turquoise jewels, while lovely nightingales enchanted everyone with their gift of song. The most talented dancers and musicians in all the land arrived in colorful pageantry, swaying gracefully to the rhythms of the flute and drum. The fragrance of frankincense and myrrh filled the air, mingled with the exotic spices of faraway Zanzibar. Having a celebration.
Where's the girl?
Nikita? I think she's on her way. Let's see. Fruits of every kind were brought. Grapes, pomegranates, mangoes, and coconuts rested in crystal bowls inlaid with precious emeralds, rubies, lapis, and pearls. Succulent spicy meats were prepared and served upon platters of silver and gold. Olives and cucumbers and garnishes of every kind were placed before King Solomon's guests. The palace shimmered with cleanliness, beauty, and excitement, and the feast began amid much laughter and celebration. Unknown to me, however, King Solomon had ordered that all of the foods be prepared especially spicy, and that no water was to be served. Why is that? What do you think? Do you know? I don't know. In his kingdom, as in mine, it was the custom for a guest to accept what was offered by a host and ask for nothing more. I freely partook of the delicious meal and was delighted by the wonderful rhythms of music and dance. Solomon was at most gracious and attentive host. As the evening continued, enjoyment of the feast gave way to increased thirst. I looked for water at the table, but there was none. As a gracious guest, I could not ask for something which my host had not provided, and so I silently enjoyed an evening of entertainment until my thirst could no longer be ignored. I quietly slipped out of the banquet hall and into the cool night air of the courtyard. The stars and the moon shone brightly and were reflected in the waters of the magnificent pool and fountain which stood in the center of the courtyard. Seeking to quench my thirst, I dipped my hand into the water and sipped of the delicious refreshment. At that very moment, I sensed a presence at my side and was startled to see King Solomon standing beside me. Solomon calmly stated, "It was our arrangement that you would take nothing of value from me without my permission." "But this is simply water," I protested quizzically. "And is not water the most precious thing on earth?" he gently replied. See, can you see him? And she was thirsty because all the food that she had was so spicy. At that moment, I understood the legendary wisdom of Solomon, for indeed water is the most precious thing on earth. I also knew at that moment that I had fallen in love with him. I remained in Solomon's kingdom for a very long time, and we proclaimed our love throughout the land, learning much from one another. Eventually, I returned to my people and brought the wisdom of Solomon and the good news of the unity of the one God. My people embraced Solomon's religion and gave up our traditional worship of the sun. Our beloved son, Menelik, King of kings, Lord of lords, conquering Lion of Judah, became king of Ethiopia in my lineage, continued until modern times when Emperor Haile Selassie became the last monarch of Ethiopia. And so, my beloved little namesake, I've come to you tonight to tell you the story of my long ago life. African tradition teaches that for as long as a people can remember the name of an ancestor, the wisdom of that ancestor will continue to guide them. I have come to you to guide you, little queen of Sheba. So all of this is happening during her dream. May you take my example and make the ancestors proud. May you live their examples as your life's guide and tell their stories to the beautiful ones who are not yet born. May you grow in wisdom and beauty and knowledge. Your magnificent mane of locks will forever be antenna to the ancestors. I must leave you now. I will again come to you in your dreams. You have but to remember my name. The ancestors are watching and smiling upon you. At these words, the little peanut butter brown princess smiled in her dreams as her dreadlock antenna fell lightly across her pillow. She awoke in the early dawn and stretched out her arms as if all of Ethiopia were stretching out their arms to welcome a new day. She rubbed her eyes, and smiled as she remembered her wonderful vision dream of the beautiful and gracious Queen of Sheba. But that morning at breakfast, when Nikita spoke to her mommy and asked if it was a dream, mommy simply smiled, that mysterious warm smile that all mommies have, as she reached down to give her a big hug and a kiss on her forehead. Snuggling close against her, Nikita knew that something very special had happened to her, and that her magnificent mane of dreadlocks would again bring the wisdom of her ancestors to her in the twilight hours. And so it was that her dreadlock antenna brought her the vision dreams of other ancestors. Nikita learned of the brilliant Hatshepsut, who lived in nearly 1500 BC, and whose father, Pharaoh Thutmose, appointed her as his successor. Coming to Nikita in a vision dream, Hatshepsut spoke of her father's command to his counselors. This daughter, Kamut Amen Hatshepsut, the loving one, I put in my place. Henceforth she shall guide you. Listen to her words and submit to her commands. Whoever adores her, I will adore. But he who speaks evil against her majesty will die. Hatshepsut spoke of how she encouraged foreign trade and improved the lives of her people through agriculture and industry, and how there was great prosperity throughout the land. She told Nikita of how difficult it was to rule because many powerful men did not want a woman to rule Egypt. See a picture? That's Hatshepsut.
Is that the boy?
No, that's the woman. She told of how, in a cunning strategy to overcome this prejudice, she simply proclaimed that she was actually a man, descended directly from the supreme god, Amun-Ra. Thereafter, she donned the garment of a pharaoh and even wore the traditional false beard worn by all pharaohs. Kind of sounds like, you remember that story, Mulan, right? Similar. She changed her title to Pharaoh Hatshepsut and led several successful military campaigns to defeat Egypt's enemies. Of course, everyone close to her knew that she was a woman, and she even married and had a daughter, Neferu. Though her subjects were perplexed by this sudden change, none dared challenge her claim. She ruled so brilliantly that as time passed, her subjects generally accepted her claim of descent from Amun-Ra. As Nikita slept, Pharaoh Hatshepsut led her on a vision journey to Deir al-Bahari on the west bank of the Nile River. There Nikita saw Hatshepsut's magnificent temple, designed by her chief architect Setmut, which he carved into the side of a great granite cliff, the magnificent carvings throughout. Her temple, worked in wonderful, delicate colors, told the story of her 33-year reign over the land of Kemet, also known as Egypt, and revealed the soft feminine side of the warrior queen. Hatshepsut told Nikita of her wish to be remembered as a great ancestor, and of how her temple stands even today as a monument to her immortality. She told of how, in supreme acknowledgement of her brilliance, she was buried with honors in the Valley of the Kings, where only the greatest of the pharaohs were buried. Pharaoh Hatshepsut gifted Nikita with her legacy of discipline, shrewd leadership, and feminine charm.
Is that Nikita?
Yeah, no, that is Hatshepsut.
Did she
I said she told how she reinforced her position as pharaoh in the year of Jubilee, when she forgave all debts and trespasses, proclaiming, "I have no enemy in all the land. All countries are my subjects. He, Amun-Ra, hath made my boundaries to be the extremities of heaven. The circuit of the sun hath labored for me." And thus Nikita learned of her brilliant ancestor of nearly 3,500 years ago, Kumet Amen Hatshepsut, the loving one, who bowed to no one except her creator, and who left an outstanding temple along the Nile to tell the story of her life. Nikita knew as she continued to study that one of life's greatest lessons had come to her in the legacy of the pharaoh Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut. The cascading mane of dreadlocks continued to grow, and Nikita's knowledge of the ancestors grew as well. She found that with each new bit of knowledge, she gained wisdom and humility, giving thanks to the Creator of all things for the gift of her vision dreams. On the evening of October 30th, she felt somewhat restless as she lay down to sleep. The autumn air was cool. Sheer pink flowered curtains billowed softly at her window as the night air swept into her room. Shadows of the trees swayed with the breeze in the moonlight. Nikita whispered her prayers to herself as her mommy tiptoed out of the room and down the hallway, drifting off into a light slumber. She heard secretive whispering voice that became more and more urgent. "Awaken, little princess, for the hour is now at hand. Awake, mon chéri." Mon chéri. Mon chéri, French, he's speaking. Resisting the voice, Nikita continued drifting deeper into. Mon chéri, you must awaken. There is no time to lose. Picture. This time the voice was more insistent. A small, very dignified image of a military officer drifted into her dreams. Mounted on a magnificent steed, he sat staunchly at attention. Nikita turned in the direction of the voice as it grew urgent still. Pardon, mon chéri, for the urgency of my entreaty. But it is time, and my destiny cannot be delayed a moment longer. I am Toussaint de Breda Louverture, and I must take you back this night, October 30th, in the year of 1791, to the Caribbean island called Santo Domingo. It is my duty to teach you of the liberation struggle of African people and of my role as Louverture. The opener. Know you, mon chéri, that though I was born a slave on Santo Domingo in 1743, I am of royal birth. My father was an African prince captured and brought into the wretchedness of slavery. Though I am of diminutive stature, I am brilliant and learned in the strategies of warfare and in the wonders of African herbal medicines. Tonight I meet that destiny which the Creator has ordained for me. I must teach you, young one, for I know not when my life may end. I know only that a great evil, slavery, must be stopped, and that tonight I must lead my people to that victory. I fight for your freedom and for the freedom of all African people. I apologize, but I cannot linger. You must listen to my every word and heed my command. Teach of what you learn from me, as I teach you of what I have learned from my ancestors aforetime. In the twinkling of an eye, Nikita found herself on the island of Santo Domingo as vicious battles raged all around her. She watched the brilliant General Toussaint as he led his men into the first of many battles. Determined to free all African slaves, she later observed the runaway slaves as they were trained in the strategies of warfare. General Toussaint, who never trained in this, who seemed to tire, who never seemed to tire, encouraged them and taught them the healing powers of native plants as he practiced the great medical skills he had learned from his father. Nikita watched his ablest companions, Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Henry Christophe, as they fought fearlessly, vowing never to surrender until freedom was won. You see the picture of him?
I want to see him.
You want to see him?
And
so, here, yes? So what we'll do to look forward to more for time, we'll come back to see and do another story time with Jerima for talking about General Toussaint, to hear more about what Nikita has learned from him. So that will be the last story in conclusion for Nikita. And again, we had 3 stories. I know, right? It was also the 3 stories of You Can Do It, Henry's Freedom Box, and Nikita. So look forward to, we'll definitely work on seeing more about the stories that Nikita found during her dreams. Okay? So thank you everyone for listening. Say thank you everyone.
More.
Nope, that's it. We done a
Can
full
we
hour.
do more?
That's it for today.
I think she said yes.
She said yes. We'll come back and do more. So hopefully all of you with your children, that this is good story time at any point in time. I'm so thankful that we've been able to share with you all. My children love story time, and you will definitely do more. All right.
More right now.
Say more. We love you all.
More.
Enjoy. And we'll see you soon.